What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and we are going to be breaking down how you can make faster cuts as a wide receiver. So I hope this video helps you guys out. Hope it could teach you a few new things. But also, fellas, if you are a football player in general and you would like to get faster, check out that very first link in the description below where you can get access to 50+ speed drills to help your 40 time improve, to help your overall explosiveness improve, and you can get access to workout plans, daily workout schedules to follow to improve your speed. So check out that very first link in the description below if you would like to get faster and access to all of these drills with sets and reps all mapped out for you. So check out that very first link below, fellas. Let's get started with this video. So now, when it comes down to making faster cuts, it is all about foot placement. It is all about having the right type of foot strike, and that is everything that we are going to be talking about today. So this first example from this wide receiver is he's coming off the ball and he's using this kind of crossover release. So a lot of wide receivers struggle with this. You know, they throw different moves off the line, different moves at the top of the route. They try to sell their moves, but they don't have much speed out of the cut. So what can we do to focus on that? So this wide receiver is working a press release where he's got like a soft press DB who's inching back, trying to keep some space between the two of them. Now, that's totally fine. To get this DB to move and get this DB to jump outside, this wide receiver has to step outside of his frame. He's got to sell the release with his hips, with his shoulders to get him to jump and think maybe a fade so he could slip back underneath. Now, the mistake that a lot of wide receivers make that make their cuts very slow is that they don't have the right type of foot placement. They don't have a positive shin angle, if you will. So everybody knows that a DB in press coverage is supposed to be watching my hips. So when he's watching our hips, a lot of wide receivers are tempted to sell and oversell with their hips. You see how his hips and shoulders turn to the outside. Now, a lot of wide receivers do that, but when they turn their hips and their shoulders to the outside, they also point their toe to the outside. They'll fully open up and their knee is pointed almost like towards like the back pylon, if you will. And that is why a lot of you have slow cuts, especially on routes like post routes, corner routes. You open up the toe. Guys, we do not want to open up the toe because we cannot drive out of the break. Anytime you guys are making a cut, whether it's like a 10-yard out, whether it's a post, you guys are cutting to push. I call it CTP. You cut to push out of the break. So same thing with the move off the line of scrimmage. This is just a really up close and personal example of this. So he throws the cut, but guys, if we want to get this DB to jump and I want to keep separation, I got to make sure I accelerate out of the break. I cannot do that if I don't have the right foot placement. So I sell with the upper half, but the lower half stays square. Toes stay pointed forward so I could drive off the middle arch or the ball of my foot and be able to get out of this break with some speed. So my next step is opening up into the slant rather than I take this step, I have my toe opened up, and my next step is a negative step going this way because you can't push when the toe's open. You're either going to hurt yourself or you're going to get stuck at the break. So keep the toes pointed forward, focus on selling with the upper half, not overdoing it and reaching with the lower half. So let's play this again full speed one more time. This is a great example from that wide receiver showcasing how the upper body and lower body are separate when you are trying to make a cut. Okay, so now, this is something that a lot of wide receivers like to do when they make cuts off of one single foot, whether it's a post route, whether it's like, you know, this wide receiver is going to be doing a diamond release slant where you take 3 hard steps at a DB's outside shoulder and hip, trying to get him to think fade, and you slip underneath. Now, a lot of wide receivers like to do that toe drag with the back foot. Now, I personally cannot stand the toe drag. I hate it. I think it's pointless. There are a lot of coaches out there that advocate for the toe drag. And in this example, this wide receiver does drag his toe, and this is the type of toe drag that I am okay with because it's not from you over-exaggerating and reaching on your cuts, which is one of the main sole reasons wide receivers are slow out of their breaks. So let's play this full speed, then we'll break it down. So he comes off 1, 2, 3 steps to the outside, and he has a little toe drag. It's not a huge deal. It's not a big indicator with the drag. It's just this little drag of his back foot, but he's not reaching with the cut leg. That's what wide receivers need to understand about this drag. I'm cool if we have a little bit of a drag, but if the drag comes from a reach, like you're stepping way outside of your frame, like this third step is way outside of his body frame, he's trying to sell, he's trying to over exaggerate the cut, and you strike the ground with your heel first rather than striking the ground on the ball of your foot and then you drag for balance, that's when I have a problem. Because like, think about it like this, like let's say somebody's standing in front of you trying to push you over and your feet are way outside of your body frame, like way outside of your shoulders. Do you think you have more balance or less balance if somebody pushes you over? Probably less balance, right? You're probably not going to be able to catch yourself if he pushes you. But if you have your feet inside of your frame, like maybe just outside of your shoulders, slightly inside your shoulders, and somebody pushes you, do you think you have more balance or less balance? more balance because your feet are in a more explosive position. And that's a position where you could drive and get out of the break. So if you guys are running routes and you're guys trying to over exaggerate the cuts and your heel hits first, your foot is way outside of your shoulder frame, guys, it's going to slow us down. And you drag the back foot to give yourself some control and some balance, but that doesn't make you any faster. Yeah, the toe drag looks cool, and I get it, and that's what everybody says to me when I talk about the drag. But guys, a little drag's not a big deal. We need an efficient cut. We need to make sure that we are cutting inside of my shoulder frame. You never, ever want to reach outside your frame on anything. There's no reason to step way outside your shoulder frame and step on your heel. It's all about being on the ball of your foot because that's where most explosion is, and that's when you could drive out. You see how his next step after the cut is down the slant route? Very similar to the last example we talked about. It's not a drag, and a lot of guys, when they reach outside their frame, you can't push when your foot is outside your frame, like outside stepping outside your shoulder frame. So a lot of guys' next step is a step right next to their right foot on this. But because he's inside his frame, because he's cutting on the ball of his foot, he could actually push off of this cut. Remember, we talked about it. You cut to push. If you're on your heel toe and your foot slaps down, you can't push. But you're on the ball of your foot, you can push, and the next step can already be out of the slant, not wasting time and making a faster break. So that is textbook right there from this wide receiver. That is when I'm okay with the drag. If it's a little tiny drag, it's not a huge deal. But when it's a big, huge drag, all this turf flies up in the air, why do we need it? We don't need the drag, so why use it? It doesn't look cool. It just slows you down, okay? So now, next example I want to talk about is a wide receiver running a route called a slant out route. So a slant out is when exactly how it sounds. You break to the slant and then you slip back to the outside. It's not a whip though. On a whip route, when you break to the slant and whip to the sideline, you keep your hips and your shoulders facing the line of scrimmage and facing the quarterback. On a slant out, you turn your back. Okay, so that's the only difference. But I want to talk about this break. So this break is very similar to like a comeback, a curl, where the wide receiver has to drop his hips. So guys, to make a faster cut when you have to drop your hips low, there are two specific things that are going to make you faster. So I think of, honestly, top of the route breaks on routes like a comeback or routes like a curl or like this slant out, a whip, whatever it is. I think of it like running a 40-yard dash. When you guys run a 40-yard dash, the first 10 yards of the 40, are you standing straight up in the air and trying to run as hard as you can? No, because that's going to slow you down. You will start to slow down with about 10 yards remaining in the 40 because you won't have anything left in the tank. The first 10 yards, they call it the drive phase. You're trying to be as explosive as possible and stay low because being low creates energy, and that energy and explosion accelerates you with top speed through the finish of the 40. Same thing when running a route. When I make a break, I want to try to get to a low explosive center of gravity. So when I start to cut off of my feet, that gives me explosion. That gives me acceleration so I could widen myself from the DB. So when I drop into a break, that's the goal. The goal is to be able to do two specific things. You want to try to sit down with your butt. I tell my wide receivers like you're playing musical chairs. The music stops, you got to sit down. And then the second thing I tell my wide receivers is I've been saying a new phrase. I've been saying chest to your quad. I've said in the past, shin goes to knee, but I try to mix it up a little bit because maybe that doesn't process for people. I'll say bring your chest to your quad. And if you bring your chest to your quad and you sit down, this is a very, very explosive position. A lot of people, you have to combine the two too, because a lot of people can sit down at their hips, but their chest and shoulders stay straight up in the air. It's like they're doing a squat underneath a barbell. And when you do that squat and you're leaning back, guys, you're going to fall back. You don't have any explosion and any energy out of it. You guys have to drop and bring the chest to the quad or chin to the knee. Now, a lot of guys will do this, but they don't drop their hips. So guess what? When you have all that energy going forward, you start to drift forward, and that makes you lose speed. You guys want to think of it like you're crushing a soda can. Top of the can, you press straight down. You are crushing the can because that explosive position, when you're trying to cut and you're taking these powerful steps right here, these plant steps, these drive steps, that shoots you out of the break because you lowered your center of gravity. Now, do you want that drop to happen slow? No, you want it to happen fast. You want to be violent with the drop. You want to get to that low explosive position as fast as you can because the violence of your hips, the violence of that level change is what creates energy and is what will get you out of the break faster. So guys, this applies to comebacks, curls, whips, slant outs, anything where you have to drop your hips. All right, fellas, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. We always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you would like 50 plus speed drills that you guys can do and daily speed workouts to do with the exact sets and reps to follow and the exact sets and reps on all of these drills, anything you want to do to get faster, check out that very first link in the description below. We'd love to help your skills improve this year and get your game faster. So again, very first link in that description below. I'll see you guys next time.